This makes me sad that it didn't work.
But penguins make you happy.
True, because they got happy feet.
They do.
Hopefully, in this specific episode, there'll be no sound issues.
Oh my god, JJ Tao is live!
I'm live!
Oh, I heard the mentioning of changing Beans' command.
Hey, Georgie. What are you gonna change it to? It's nearly perfect.
Oh no, I thought Ceratops mentioned making it Beans. No.
I like it. I like it the way it is, because then I can go beans.
Like screaming beans. How the hell did I have so many questions, but
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I actually can't really remember. They got my mods got really carried away with chat commands one night, and now this is just our life.
All right, let's get started. First of all, I'd like to apologize everyone for the delay that was on my side, trying to get something working that I've never done before. And as I turned it on, it all stopped working. Well, the sound. So, welcome to the show. We are here again with Reiha, and as always, our resident caregiver from Vanaqua Aquarium, KP. Yes.
Hello.
No, you did. So yeah, I thought I missed the stream. No, I'm just late. So today we're going to be talking about, if you see in the background, penguins. Pengoose. We're going to be talking about pengoose. You can see there behind me on the screen there, and as we have a lot of questions that were submitted. Yes, we are live. Thank you for that. We're going to try and get through all of those questions and hopefully try to fit in some live questions depending how this goes. But if I can
Newt.
Yes, Newt. Yes, Newt. That's Pengu. Newt. This wasn't one question here, but if I would like to start off a question, it's something I've been meaning to ask for a while, and I feel I have the right, considering that all the penguins there are pretty much from my.
You're the host. You can ask the first question.
I wanted to ask. I've seen it in Vanaqua, I've seen it in Monterey Bay, I've seen it even in San Diego, I've seen it in so many different places. Is there a reason why most of the penguins that I'm seeing are the jackass penguin, the African penguin? Is there a reason for this? Or am I just going crazy?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's definitely a solid reason that you don't see a lot of the cold weather penguins. And I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself, but there aren't actually that many species of cold weather penguin. But those are the iconic ones though that we usually think about. But the reason we don't see those guys is because that's like a crazy hard thing to do, to try to replicate the Antarctic. So I feel like the South African climate is something that lends itself to this species being able to be housed in a variety of different areas. And the fact that these penguins are pretty well adapted to temperatures that we see a lot in most of our areas around North America. But also because they're incredibly endangered. They're a species that's like really that zoos and aquariums are really taking an interest in, because we want to be able to preserve this species. There is a real likelihood that this species could go extinct in South Africa in the wild. But if we have a viable population under human care in North America, then whenever it's deemed safe or whatever, it is possible to reintroduce a population back out into the ocean. Or even if they don't go extinct and we're just finding that their populations are doing a little bit better, they're recovering a little bit, there's a possibility of injecting some of those animals that we have under human care back into that population, giving it a little bit of a boost and helping it grow. So I think those are, at least for the Vancouver aquarium, that's the reason that we decided to house this particular species, is because of its very relevant nature to what's happening out in the oceans right now, and a species that we should really all be concerned about.
I think I've just been shattered when I heard that they're actually endangered. I thought, by the looks of it, I mean, I've seen so many in Cape Town. I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah, their population is less than 2% of its historical number.
Oh my
So even
gosh.
though you see them in an area, they should be everywhere. They should be
Yes.
almost to the point of being a nuisance. They are actually a very endangered species. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our first question from Alara. Reiha. Sorry. That was not intentional. Please carry on with
That's her fault. That's her fault
Yeah.
for having 17 different names across every single platform that we have.
It's 2021. We need that internet security.
I never thought about how that would affect everything. Okay, first question on our list is, what do penguins eat?
Yeah, so it varies a little bit depending on the species, and there are right around 18 different species of penguins. But this particular species that we're talking a little bit more about, although we can branch out to other species as well, but this is definitely, African penguins are what I know the most about.
Yes.
So if we get into other species, just do know that I don't really have any idea what I'm talking about. But they eat mostly small schooling fish, and they're not like super particular about what fish they get. So typically at a facility, you have a variety of fish for these guys. So like one day they'll get herring, which is a really big fatty fish. You don't want them to get too much of that though, because just like us with eating really big fatty foods can be a problem. And then we've also got capelin, which is like just kind of like a type of smelt. There are lots of other different kinds of smelts too. They all have like crazy names: silver sides, white smelt, a number of other things, and yeah, sometimes even squid. So yeah, they really have a pretty wide-ranging diet out in South Africa. They'll basically eat anything that they can fit down their throats.
Ooh, yes, which apparently is a big problem as well, because they sometimes eat fish lures because people keep leaving them in the ocean. So I know that's a problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They get stuck in there.
I mean, ocean debris is such a problem for everybody. It's there isn't a single animal in the ocean that is not struggling with some kind of ocean debris issue. So yeah.
And just saying, there are fish laws apparently that are designed that it won't actually, that apparently it's digestible almost. And I'm like, I didn't know this, but now I know this. So fishermen, please. Okay.
Dispose of all of your things appropriately.
Yes. Yes, and again, don't throw a cat litter in the toilet. We're going to mention that every single episode. Do not throw a cat litter in the toilet.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you'll know this, but this is a question from a live question. Is it true that Isabellina penguins, I think it's the albino penguins, live shorter because they're not well camouflaged and accepted by the group?
Oh, so like albino animals,
Yes.
or albino, as you say. And you always sound so much smarter than me when you speak with the accent.
It's because it's English. It originates from England.
So this is true, and this is true of not just penguins. This is true of all animals. So we can talk a little bit about the camouflage of the African penguin. So as you're looking at these guys right now, you might be thinking, that's not camouflage. Like, that doesn't, you know, that's really, really crappy camouflage.
Tuxedo.
Well, it is when you're on land. But this is actually a really common form of camouflage in the ocean. So almost really any ocean animal that I can think of has some form of this camouflage. The penguins have kind of taken it to the next level, but having that really dark back and that really light belly, some of the iconic animals that I can think of are killer whales. Killer whales have this exact same coloration.
Panda dolphins.
And yeah, different kinds of dolphins, absolutely. So the reason is because in the ocean, if a predator or even prey to some extent are looking down and all they're seeing is the bottomless abyss of the ocean and then a black back of a penguin, they're less likely to be able to see it. And vice versa, if you're below the penguin looking up at the bright sun in the sky and the white belly of a penguin, very, very difficult to see. So when you have an animal that's unnaturally a different color, like white in the albino case, they definitely are more likely to be preyed upon, and less likely to be successful hunters as well. Also, usually that condition, like a full albino condition, comes with a lot of eye issues. So they often have more difficulty seeing, and you can kind of see this even in, because this is something that humans can get as well. Will often have a number of eye issues that are affected by not having that pigment. So yeah, I mean that's why you don't see that. And we've even talked about it before. We talked about it in tigers and about, you know, when you get like all these kind of weird genetic abnormalities, that usually doesn't just come with like just white feathers, right? You're getting a number of other things are wrong
creatures,
when when one of those genes is affected, it kind of messes with the whole genome. So yeah, that is true. You will sometimes see them in facilities a little bit more commonly, and that's just because we can take care of those animals and they don't have to contend with trying to survive. That's the only reason that you see them more in facilities and you don't see them out in the ocean or out in the wild.
I was gonna make a terrible wasn't gonna age well joke about gingers, but I know don't. It's like same sort of because as you mentioned, they tend to live longer, because that's actually a good question. I've actually seen an albino penguin in an estuary around Cape Town, and it obviously
really?
Apparently it's 1 in every 50,000. 1 in every 50,000 are that color. And when we saw it, we're like, is that a chick? And it's like, no, that's the way it is. And it's like, oh gosh. So
yeah, and because you get it, like, it's that rare, and then, you know, so it's rare that they grow to adulthood, so it's rare that they breed, so it becomes rarer and rarer, and that's just kind of how that thing goes. So.
Okay, so now we cross over to our other questions that we have. Thank you for submitting, by the way. If you submit your questions, you'll get them answered.
Next on the list is, what is the lifespan of a penguin?
Yeah, so this is going to depend greatly on the species, but if we're talking about African penguins, 15 to 20 on average is going to be pretty, like 20 would be a very old age for a wild penguin to get. However, in facilities, because the same, you know, thing as like for having albino animals, they can absolutely and do usually live longer. I don't know if you guys saw, I had a post, my birthday twin at the Vancouver Aquarium is a penguin.
Comments, yes, the 33-year-old penguin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I wish. No. But she is she just turned 24.
Wow.
She's still spry. There are breeding pairs in facilities that are in their 30s, and I think the oldest on record African penguin lived to be it was either 40 or 43, so early 40s is the oldest record for under human care. So they can live a little bit longer under human care, but yeah, average 15 to 20 out in the oceans is pretty good age.
We might have to
also look at this. Do you see on the screen, is that Lori? Does this penguin have a name tag on her little flipper? Are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing?
Oh yeah.
Like everyone's like, really cute. What is he seeing? I'm gonna need to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to figure that out.
I didn't know if you were watching the same thing, but anyway.
So yeah, I'm gonna need to. Actually, we're gonna need to do
that. This appears to be Lori, and she's very cute.
And that's from the San Diego Aquarium, correct?
This is the San Diego Zoo. And so I just found this last night, and wanted to, instead of just watching otters and talking about penguins, I felt like that didn't make a lot of sense. So and it just so happens too that these are African penguins that we're looking at.
See, we go back to the same thing. It's like amazing. Everywhere goes like there's that's why I would never assume that they were actually endangered.
Yeah.
It actually blows my mind. Okay. If we move on to the next question, this is a cute one. What are the names of the other penguins at Van Aqua? Oh, how many?
And Georgie's asking too. There is a penguin cam at Van Aqua, but unfortunately, the reason I didn't use that penguin cam is that I know exactly where our penguins hang out, and it is on the exact opposite side as the penguin cam. So I knew we were very unlikely to see penguins if I watched that penguin cam. So to answer your question, that's why we're not watching it. So the penguins at Van Aqua, everybody knows Hope. Now, it gets a little confusing because they kind of have multiple names. At most places, you have an enormous amount of penguins, so you actually refer to them by their color. So sometimes you'll hear us call them by their color too. But we have Hope, we have Lillowette, who's my birthday twin, the birthday girl, 24.
Oh.
We have Steveston, who is currently our only male, and we have Salt Spring. This is so hard for me because, like I said, we only refer to them by their colors. So if you're wondering why in the world I don't know who they are, it's because we call them by their colors. Then we have Seashell.
Wait, they're different colors?
Yeah, so they do. Yeah, so we put colored bands on their arms. So instead of putting Lori on the side of their like little name tags, we put little colors on the side. So Hope is a white band. Steveston is red band. Seashell is yellow band. Salt Spring is orange band. Who did I miss? Lillowette is pink band. So that's just so that we can easily tell them apart. So we do often refer to them as their colors. So, and they don't really know their names necessarily. We could teach them their names. We just haven't. They all operate as a group. So penguins, they come.
I was just about to say, aren't there wristbands that you could possibly... No, I'm not going to say it. I'm just saying. We have problems with otters. Just put a colored band on an otter.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, otters... Well, first of all, their skin is, only attached to, a couple places. So it would be, impossible to put, a collar or any kind of thing on these guys.
It'll just come right
off. Some otters do have flipper tags. But we just don't... we just don't feel the need to do that. A flipper tag is more of a permanent kind of thing, like a flipper piercing, and it's just not really necessary. You guys, you're gonna get really good at it. It's good. It's good practice.
Okay, next question.
Next question we have is, what kind of training do you do with the penguins?
Yeah. So we do kind of some pretty basic stuff with the penguins. It's important to note that you can do more. We're really busy in the penguins. We just want them to be as healthy and as happy as possible, and then we kind of move on. But we do a lot to take care of their feet. So foot health in these birds is super duper important. And actually in all birds. So even when I worked with birds of prey, same thing. These guys can get something called bumblefoot, which is basically like a staph infection of the foot.
God.
And it can be deadly for the birds.
Yes.
So if that infection is into their bloodstream, it absolutely can be deadly. So, and it comes typically from standing on a flat surface and getting basically bed sores almost, but for your feet, right? So even though it looks like it would be super uncomfortable, when you've got these habitats that have a lot of rocks and hills and stuff, that's actually very beneficial for the bird's feet. And that's the reason for doing that. When they've got an uneven surface, they tend to get less of these sores. And then, of course, penguins, as you know, JJ, I'm sure from having seen them out in South Africa, they're just walking around in their own doo-doo. It's just like doo-doo palooza.
Oh God, so much.
Yeah, they live in dens that they make of their own doo-doo. I mean, it's literally just poo-poo everywhere. So if you do get an open sore on your foot, there's a high likelihood of infection.
So that there will be infection, yeah.
Yeah. So what we do preemptively, before we even have a problem, is once a week we do foot checks with our penguin. So we train them for a lift. So it essentially just means that they will let us pick them up, lie them sideways, and then they kick out their two little feet so that we can take a look and make sure that they're not developing any kind of sores or anything like that. So we catch it ahead of time. And then if they are, there's some things that our vet staff can can do. We have like little foot baths that they can do,
Aw.
little pedicures, little iodines and stuff like that, making sure they don't have any cracks and stuff like that. And yeah, treat them if they do have a problem. But because of what's really nice is that we don't have that many penguins at the aquarium, which is nice, and I wish we had more at the same time, but it is really nice because we can do these foot checks on a weekly basis. Most facilities do not have the ability to do that with 45 penguins.
Yes.
So we've actually never had bumblefoot at our facility, which is pretty much unheard of. Almost every facility that I know of has had some sort of experience with bumblefoot. So that's the main thing that we do with them. They are trained to hop up on a scale for their weights, so we can keep track of their weights that way. Weights are also a really important sort of. They can give us an idea of where the penguin is at in its cycle. These guys actually molt, and I'm sure we'll get onto that in a little bit. So their weight is a really good indicator of what's going on there. And then we also train them to, this is kind of that desensitization training that I think we've talked a little bit about in previous AMAs, but basically to be really comfortable walking around in different areas. And all of our penguins can walk through different areas. I know we always call Hope the office penguin because she's, the
Always
one
in
that we
the
use the
office,
most. Yeah, but we do use the other birds. The other birds can go to different areas too. So those are kind of the main things that we do right now with them.
That's so cute, actually. Moving on to the next question is, how easy are the penguins to train?
So no animal is easier or harder, but they are all different. And the thing about penguins is that they don't typically eat a lot of fish. It's a smaller animal. So when I go to train one of our male stellar sea lions, they get 20 kilos of food every single day.
Jeez.
Yeah. So for my Americans, that's like almost 50 pounds of food. 44 pounds of food, or actually, yeah, a little bit more than that. So so that's a lot of fish that I have to work with when I'm working with the sea lion. But the penguins may only eat 3 herring in a day, right? So food is not our best tool usually for training when we talk about these animals. So we have to find other things that they like. So for instance, Hope really enjoys interactions with humans. So that is something that we can use to train with her. But not every bird is like that. In fact, most African penguins are not actually very nice. Hope is the exception that proves the rule.
Yes.
And so with the other birds who may not necessarily really enjoy being touched, what we sort of do, like for a lift, for instance, is lift them up, and then like if they're really, really struggling and really, really bitey or anything like that, we're not going to immediately put them down. So wait until they're nice and calm, and then they realize, okay, as soon as I relax, that's when I get let down and get to go. Yeah, and so that's kind of it's a interesting, different training technique. It's still positive reinforcement. You get what you want as soon as you do what I want. But yeah, it's just a little bit different. We just can't use food as much. So they're not harder. It's just different. It's just wrapping your head around like a little bit of a different concept.
I just want to point out, I keep getting a fright every time I see one of the penguins swim into me. Because I'm watching my own stream and I'm like, it's like my brain's trying to interpret that that's not there.
That's so funny.
Okay, next question.
Next question is, what does it mean if an African penguin is standing, putting his head up, flapping his wings?
Oh, yeah, I saw this
guttural noise.
Yeah, so
Right.
they African penguins were previously known as the jackass penguin, so they do have a very strange noise. It's like a honking almost.
Yes.
And so, sorry, what? Reiha?
No, I was just gonna say, like, so is it jackass because of the honking noise?
Donkey.
Yeah, so it's not because they're jerks. It's because they sound a little bit like a braying donkey. So when they do that, that is typically like a breeding vocalization, or just like a communication, like here I am, that sort of thing. Also, couples will usually be more vocal. They're trying to like stake out a territory. But yeah, they can recognize each other's voices. So yeah, but that kind of like posturing with like throwing the head back is definitely considered more of a breeding, or even like a greeting for a for the pair of the other half of the pair. Yeah, and so they do have a number of different vocalizations, but that's typically what that one is. That longer, like, I don't even want to. I keep going to like impersonate it, and I'm like, don't do it, don't.
Yeah.
Do it. Like,
Listen, that is so cringe in any documentary when the caregiver's like, and this is the sound that a koala makes, and you're like, please don't stop immediately. You don't sound like a koala.
Yep.
Just Google,
exactly.
Google the sound, dude.
Exactly.
We need to do another sound thing again. Let's do that next time and put that sound in there. And let the audience guess what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Is it a donkey? Is it a penguin? We could just do that the whole time. Is this a donkey? Is this a penguin?
And next question is for if the penguins have babies, baby chicklets in the aquarium, do they look after it, or does the aquarium look after it?
So that's going to depend greatly on the animals, and I can kind of wrap this into Georgie's question here about if we have couples at Van Aqua. We have some birds that have paired off together, but we actually have penguins at our facility. So we are not a breeding facility. There are facilities that are specifically for breeding, but other facilities are important too. And what we do is we house animals that are not wanted in the breeding program for one reason or another right now. And I don't actually know those reasons, but for whatever reason, like people do keep track of their genetics. So for one reason or another, our birds' genetics are not particularly wanted in the genetic pool. So I don't know if there's been, birth defects associated with those genetics or whatever. Our birds are all perfectly fine, but that doesn't mean they're not carrying something weird, right?
Okay. So
there are people whose like literal job is to keep track of this sort of thing, and then make recommendations for who should breed with who. So we're not a breeding facility. We are a holding facility for animals that are not necessarily wanted, because if they're in with other breeding populations, then you have all kinds of issues, and it's just a lot easier to have them somewhere else. But we still have birds that have paired off, and sometimes there's same-sex pairs. So it's like we had 2 girls paired up for a long time. So it doesn't always result in breeding, and we've never had chicks at the aquarium because that's not what we're doing.
Okay.
But at facilities that do breeding, they will try to have they want the parents of the penguins to take care of the birds. But typically what they'll have is the setup is where the dens are. There is human access to it. People can reach in from the back, check on the egg, make sure, okay, yes, this egg is properly incubated. The parents are doing a really good job. Or even once the chick is hatched, okay, this bird is they'll weigh the chicks on a very regular basis. This bird's gaining weight. We know the parents are feeding it. We don't have to worry about it. We could let them do their own thing. Or vice versa. Okay, this chick has actually lost weight. Losing weight in a chick is very, very bad. So we're gonna actually pull this and take care of it ourselves. So it's whatever's in the best interest of the chick, but they do want the parents to take care of it.
Yeah.
That is the end goal. But if not possible, they will intervene to save the life of the chick. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing too there's a little penguin that's swimming around right now that's a different color than all the other penguins?
Yeah, I'm waiting for
So JJ kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but that's actually like a juvenile. So he hasn't had his first little molt where he'll get his adult plumage when he gets to his first molt, but that's kind of a younger bird.
I was actually waiting for him to circle around again. Seems to be doing laps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do know that the chicks are like massive. It's like
the chicks. Sometimes the chicks look like they're bigger than the adults.
Yeah. Yes. And you see it and you think, okay, so that is just basically the adults are wearing tuxedos and the chicks are wearing a fluffy hip hop jackets.
Yeah, they're full grown at a very early age. Is like just a few months in, chicks are fully grown, and like the parents are still feeding them, and it looks ridiculous. It's like having like a 30-year-old living in your basement or whatever.
I
Like,
had to eye contact, like feed me through my mouth. Like, okay, this is awkward.
yeah, exactly.
All right, JJ, did you have one on your side?
Let me see over here. Okay, this was a question. Among the different penguins species, which one is your favorite and why? Obviously, it's okay.
Oh.
Whoa.
This is hard because like I haven't worked with other penguins, so I have to preface it with that. So even though I could say I have a favorite or whatever, the only ones I've ever worked, well, actually that's not true. I did kind of work with Magellanic penguins, which are very, very similar to African penguins.
Oh, well, there we go.
But I have a really, one of my coworkers had a really funny story about working with, she used to work with king penguins, which are one of those giant ones that
Massive
are,
yes.
that are that cold weather species. And she said that, because they would walk them around as well. And they're like a pretty laid back bird. But they had one area where they had to go down just like a small flight of like 6 stairs. Well, penguins and stairs do not meld well at all. You can imagine how clumsy they are. Like just going downstairs, especially, is like no bueno. So what they would do is the keeper would stand at the bottom of the stairs and just hold up their arms, like just to catch the little penguin, and the king penguins would just lean forward into their arms, and then they would just carry them down the stairs that way. And I have always, ever since she told me that story, I've always wanted to work with king penguins, the trust fall.
Yes.
So that I could do a penguin trust fall. Also, like the little blue penguins that are like the tiniest species of penguin. Those guys always look super cute to work with. I don't know. I guess I just like all the penguins.
They all look cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the really, really tiny ones.
Yeah,
like
that's like the little blue, like the little fairy penguins. Yeah.
Yes.
Those ones are super cute. The rock hoppers are like beautiful. I just like them all. Yeah.
They look so cute with their little wings that can't fly.
Uh-huh.
I do know this interesting fact. There's only one species of penguin in the northern hemisphere, and that's in that crazy island where Darwin was, the Galapagos Islands. It's the only place where there's... But that island gets a pass. It's been doing weird things for years.
Yeah, well, and it's like literally right on the equator. Like, I mean, people always use it like it's a northern hemisphere penguin. I'm like, well, kind of, but like,
yes.
You know, depending on what side of the island they're on, like.
Yeah, and the island probably moved anyway.
Yeah, but in general, yeah, they're only present in the northern hemisphere. So that's like Coca-Cola has been lying to us for years. Yes. Showing polar bears and penguins in the same place. It would never happen. Yes. Has never happened. So yeah. So don't think that you're gonna go up to the Arctic and see penguins. There aren't any.
The biggest false advertisement ever.
Yeah,
True
it really is.
Coca-Cola and the red Santa even.
But I guess it was a polar bear like drinking a Coke too, so I guess we shouldn't really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we shouldn't really be analyzing. It's like, oh, the accuracy of this advert, and yet the penguin.
Yeah. Oh look, somebody's coming in. Is it feeding time? This is exciting. I don't know why. I love watching other facilities. I'm like, what's going on?
I like. By the way, this is sponsored by Alaska Airlines. The stream.
Yeah, I know. By the way, I am not sponsored by Alaska Airlines, so just in case you were wondering.
They're streamers. We need to get airlines on board. Congratulations to them. Which, ironically, okay, I'm gonna say this, but unfortunately, it's very bad that the planes are grounded at the moment, and they're publicizing flightless birds.
Oh.
Someone did walk.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Alaska Airlines, and we got penguins. And unfortunately, a lot of, obviously there's shame. A lot of planes are not able to fly at the moment, because of the pandemic. So,
I will say though, because we talk about, there's that. Now we're seeing the. You can see the difference in the coloration there as that bird walks by. I wish I could zoom in and see his name. Yeah. So, people are often like, well, sometimes people are even like, is this actually a bird? And they are birds. And even though people are like, well, they can't fly, I would argue that they can fly in the water.
Yes.
And if you watch them in the water, they literally use the exact same motion as flighted birds, and they use those wings just in a little bit of a different way, but they do fly through the water, and they can be very, very fast too.
Yes, I mean, that's basically calling a chicken or a peacock. I mean, they take off. Ostriches are not birds; they're all birds. But they... Okay, Larry, you got... Reiha, sorry. you have more questions on your side that were submitted.
Well, actually, that just answered one of the questions of why do penguins flap their wings if they can't fly? So
yeah, and sometimes
they
sometimes they do that on land too. And I think that's just like kind of like stretching, like getting like a I don't know. Like I see them do it sometimes, and it just kind of feels like they're doing. One of them's doing it right now. So this is actually called. If you're watching on my stream, and you'll see it in a second on JJ's stream, I think. A rouse. So you'll often see them pick up all their feathers and like almost look massive for a second.
Yes.
And that's So they actually have muscles attached to every single feather, every single one. And so they can lift them all up and then lie them back into place. So when a bird does that rouse kind of thing, I think picking up their wings helps them do that.
Yes.
But it's basically it's twofold. They can either they can vent off heat that way,
Yes.
or they can also capture air and then warm up that air and keep it close to themselves that way. And it typically is a sign of a really comfortable bird too. By the way, you won't see birds do this unless they're very at ease with what's going on around them. So that's something you can kind of look for and go, oh, that bird's very happy. But they do have a waterproof outer coating of feathers and underneath the down feathers that are helping to keep them warm. So that's part of the process. And then this little chick back here is actually doing another awesome thing. It's doing preening, but you might see it spending a lot of time plucking near its hind end. And that's because these guys, right around their little tuchuses, the little cute little tushies, they have a uropygial gland, which is actually like the oil gland. So, I mean, most people have heard of that birds do this. And so they'll grab some of that oil from that gland and rub it on all their feathers. And that heat helps to keep the feathers in good condition until they molt again. And they typically molt every single year, where they get brand new feathers every single year. But that oil helps to keep them waterproof for that
like
period of time.
basically having a lotion bottle in your butt pocket.
Yeah, a little butt pocket with lotion in it. Don't think too hard on that.
Yeah, don't take my thing out of context. I said in the pockets.
Don't clip that and don't Google it. Yeah.
Oh god, so many stuff's gonna get clipped today. But I just noticed the little chick there. But yeah, I used to have birds, and I used to love when I used to do that little puff thing, and then they shake. But now,
yeah. Just putting their feathers back in the proper place, and yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We got do dads warm eggs and mommy gets food?
Yeah. So in this species in particular, they will trade off. It's not like the emperor penguins who are gone for like months. But moms and dads will warm the eggs. And this is actually part of what's a problem right now for these guys. Is overfishing is the major issue that African penguins are facing. And so what's happening is that they are another penguin just like came flying in from the corner. Is that they will have to travel enormous distances, sometimes like 30 kilometers, just to find the fish that they need. And then they eat as much as they can, but then they have to swim back 30 kilometers. So in that time, they're basically using up all of that energy. They're supposed to be storing it so that they can then regurgitate it for the chicks. By the time they get back, they have almost nothing left. And so that's a serious issue right now with the African penguins. But yes, that is the trade-off that they will do is one goes and hunts and then comes back, and then they trade off to take care of the chicks. These guys typically have 2 chicks, by the way. So like at our facility, we actually Steveston and Hope are actually brother and sister from the same clutch. So Hope was born just a couple days after Steveston, and that's typical of this species. They have 1 egg, and then a couple days later, they have a second egg.
Oh, that was kind of sad to hear as well about the 30K thing. And that's,
Yeah,
I'm guessing that's to do with overfishing, because that's a human created problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also part of the reason why like nobody's making an effort to put more African penguins back out in the ocean right now, because it's not they're already struggling. So adding more to their population is not going to help them, you know.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the thing, is that you're stuck in a place where we are, like, you know, breeding the animals so that we can have a viable population, but we can't put them back out right now because we haven't solved the problem to begin with. That's giving them so many issues. So yeah, that's you know, the sad part of about penguins is the struggle that they're having right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good. Quite a few questions. I saw that one that the penguin that just jumped in, by the way. It was just like out of nowhere.
what was that all about? It was just like bang.
Gotcha. James Bond, I'm wearing a suit. You got more questions on your side on that form that we need to cover?
Yep. So the next one was, are the aquarium penguins rescues?
No, so the every penguin at the Vancouver Aquarium was born at the New England Aquarium. So there aren't really a lot of rescues happening too much. There actually is an on-the-ground facility in South Africa that does rescue and rehab of the birds there. But the penguins that we have in almost every North American facility are all birds that were born under human care for the express purpose of potentially re-releasing them back out to the ocean. These guys are very easy to rehabilitate. So even if you did have like a bird that, like I said, in South Africa, they have a rescue facility. Those birds are typically not going to be deemed non-releasable, like the sea otters are. They're not going to necessarily like imprint on humans in kind of the way that the sea otters have.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be really, unless there was a bird with like a horrible injury and stuff like that. There's not really any reason to hang on to them. And even then, like it's trickier with like penguins. Like if a penguin is missing a leg or something, to be quite honest with you, that bird's probably just going to be euthanized, because what can you do? Like if you're a penguin with one leg, they're already so clumsy,
Yes.
you know. I mean, so there's not a lot of leeway there. Even with like one wing, what can a penguin with one wing do? You know, so they're very limited in that way. Might be different if you know, it was just missing an eye or something like that. Would be something that you could maybe work with, but there isn't really like a high demand for birds that are rescued, that need homes. They're mostly able to be released. So
Unfortunately, it goes down to the survival of the fittest. They wouldn't survive like that in the wild, and I think that's where we've sort of upset the balance with humans as well. Is there's nothing, you know, in that fashion. People like me can walk around just fine and go through society with my skinny chicken arms and no ability to fend for myself or fight.
None of us would be around if we had to do any actual survival skills. I agree. There's be no wine. Like if I had to make my own wine, I don't even know what would happen.
We all cry when we get stuck in the rain. I mean, you've seen that on chat, and the otters are getting wet. Like they're stuck in the rain, and the otters are like, and it's more water.
Yeah, they're like taking naps and stuff. You're like,
Okay, let's get through these questions on the form. Which is your next one there, Reiha?
The next one is, what are the penguins' personalities like?
They all definitely have individual personalities, and there is a hierarchy among the birds, and I think that dictates a lot of the personality of the birds. Like Steveston, for instance, is like on exhibit. He is a huge bully. He's a total jerk. But like most bullies, when you take him away from his element and he's not on exhibit and he's somewhere else, he tends to be very like our big like scaredy chicken penguin. He's like the most terrified of everything, because I think that's, I don't know, for me that seems like a big quality in bullies, is that, like, you know, as soon as you take them out of their element, they're they're the ones on the opposite side of the spectrum. And then we obviously have Hope, who's very, you know, interested in people, and stuff like that. But and then like Pink is kind of like our resident old lady, who, yeah, she just like, she walks around and you can just tell she's ancient. So yeah, they absolutely do have personalities. Every single animal has different personalities. Sometimes I think it's a little bit harder for people to see, just because penguins they don't have facial expressions of any kind, you know? But once you learn to read their body language, there's definitely personalities associated with them.
Yeah, we can carry on moving to the questions that are on your list. We don't have anything here so far, so let's.
There's Barma here too is asking about the same-sex couples that I'm sure people have seen, like those heartwarming stories of like same-sex couples in penguins. Yeah, and I think that a lot can kind of be learned from penguins and other species. So first of all, same-sex coupling is present in like every species, not just penguins, like in the world. Like just every species of animal does this, and it's just because they just don't really care. It's just like, hey, dude, I like what you're about. Like, you know, they don't really
like
care.
your vibe.
So yeah, exactly. We vibing. So yeah, that absolutely can happen. It's not even really like that crazy. Out in the ocean, obviously, like they wouldn't be able. Well, they're not necessarily able to reproduce. But we did have, like I said, 2 females that were paired together, and they would lay eggs like crazy, like lay eggs like chickens, and they didn't even realize that like those aren't fertilized eggs. My girls. So sorry. So yeah, that absolutely does happen, and it's just like in the animal world, it's just it's not even weird. There's a lot we can learn from that. It's just, we're vibing, we're good.
Yeah, we're the only species that have an issue with that. The only species.
Yeah, exactly. There's no weird you know, penguin religions or social stigmas that they just do whatever they feel like.
And yet they all wear suits.
I know.
We've got a question here. Do penguins mate for life?
So I love this question, and I hope that I don't like ruin anybody's life by this information. But so penguins do pair up. They will pair up, and if that pair is successful and raises like successful chicks, they will usually return to the same place, to the same bird the next year. That is, of course, if both of those animals survive to the next year, and also if nobody vibes with another penguin that they like better. So it's kind of the same as humans. The birds are not immune to finding a better looking penguin and deciding that that's the way that they want to go. So in general, yes, they do pair up, but there are instances where birds have decided to go a different route and pursue other partners. It's also, I was watching something, and I can't remember the exact statistics, so I'm going to try not to name a number, but I saw a thing that, and it had like it was on like National Geographic or something. And this was specifically African penguins, that once it was 70% or something of like female penguins, when the males would go out to hunt for fish, they were allowing like 5 or 6 male penguins to come in to their little dens and do their thing with them while the male was away.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so it had like a startling statistic on DNA as well, that, you know, the penguins that thought they were the father, you are not the father. You know, it was a whole Maury episode with penguins. So yes and no is the answer.
That is terrible.
I don't mean to like ruin you guys about like, you know, everybody likes to dream about.
We've got the
when
complete
true love-
opposites. Yeah, and like these penguins they could be on Jerry Springer.
Yeah, it's again though the social stigma and like stuff like that are
Yes.
like surrounding monogamy is like we love to believe that as humans, and
Yeah,
in reality it's not really like a supernatural thing, not just for humans but for birds as well. So they will pair up because that's like a good it's a good way to raise chicks, but they are not immune to the charms of other penguins.
I'm trying to figure out how they found one penguin more attractive than the other and be like, oh, out of all the ones that look the same, you're the best.
You know what? They probably think we all look the same too. I often think
True.
about this too. I'm like, how do you think that? But the penguins do have different appearances. Like if you were up close, you'd be able to see some are bigger, some are, and you know, I don't. I think sometimes too because I'm pretty sure. Not I'm pretty sure. I do know like in humans, like we're attracted to people who, like in general, our visuals draw us to people who are not super closely genetically related to us.
Yes.
Because obviously it would be very bad if we were attracted to like our genetic equals. And so I wonder if it's the same with penguins, where they're like, for whatever reason, I really like tall penguins because I'm a short penguin, and you know, or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting. Moving on to the next question.
Anyway,
After that really
little,
weird subject.
It wouldn't be a Monday morning AMA if we didn't just go completely off the rails for a little while.
Painted penguins to be these terrible, but as you mentioned, it's not natural for anything. We do it because it's a moral standing thing, but it's actually not within our nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Reiha?
It would just be the best reality TV is what I was thinking.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Can you imagine all the penguins together like, oh my god, when I was busy out fishing 30 kilometers, I came back and found Jerry with them. It did. Oh my gosh.
Alrighty. Next is, can the otters and penguins live together?
Oh, great question. I don't know. What do you guys think? Hey, dude, there's a shark living in this. Did you see that?
What?
Okay, wait a second. There's a shark living in the penguin habitat. I just saw it swim by on the bottom. Must be one of the nice kind.
Oh, the ones that stay at the bottom. I've swum with those. Was horrifying.
Yeah.
Is it like a reef shark?
No. It looked like
sand shark.
Yeah, or like one of those ones that like eats like the algae on the bottom.
Yes, that's right. But
or something like that. They definitely wouldn't eat them.
You could swim above them, and we used to get told by the trainer, just don't go down, and you'll be fine. Just swim above, and they will leave you alone. That's wow.
So Beans is pretty right here. I would envision that an otter would just absolutely shred a penguin into 1,000 little pieces. I mean, so short answer is no. That would not really be considered a super great idea. And there wouldn't really be any way for. Like, can you imagine? Like, the otters would be making, like, omelets with penguin eggs. Like,
no.
Yeah. And, like, penguins can't really... On land, penguins can't really get away from a sea otter. So, no. Your hopes of, like, a penguin otter cuddle puddle are probably not going to happen. And I actually there's stories at Van Aqua. This is from like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, so I wasn't even there. But stories of like a peacock, when the Stanley Park there used to be peacocks, landing in the otter habitat, and what happened after that was not pretty. So yeah. So no. Short answer is no. There are like multi-species things that you can kind of consider, but especially for sea otters are just they just have that mischievous streak in them. Like, there would just be no like keeping them from like just trying to cause trouble and start fights all the time, so but like penguins and like various different species of like, as we're seeing here, fish and sharks, we did sea stars and sea urchins and fun stuff like that at the aquarium. You can also do other types of birds. But but I don't even know. I'm trying to think like what could live with an otter. Like, you know, like I don't even know.
The otters. That's about
Yeah, the otters can live with the otters. I think that's just about it. Yeah. Yeah, rocks. They can have pet rocks for sure.
Well, Katma would probably use it as a means of escape somehow. If I put this against the boat, just keep hammering.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah, next question there, Reiha. We've got nothing on this side so far.
Alrighty. Next question I have is, why do otters puff out their whiskers?
Well, that's not really a penguin question, but I think we kind of covered this the other day, and I think the person who asked this was on my stream the other day. Oh, or maybe it was in the Discord. I get so confused. There's so many things to keep up on. But I think what you were kind of seeing, because I think they were talking about this within relation to Tazlina, who kind of like does that like nursing behavior, like with her little tongue blepped out, and super cute. It's just when their mouths are moving, their whiskers will move. They do use their whiskers to a certain extent as like a sensitivity thing. So like they can feel things, like especially when they're going to eat and stuff like that. So they are sensitive, kind of like a cat's. So they can use them to kind of feel around. It wouldn't really happen too much at the aquarium just because like our water is always like really, really clear. But a lot of times out in the ocean, they wouldn't have the, you know, the ability of being able to see as well as in our like pristine water. So so they can use them to kind of feel around if they need to in like low visibility. But for the purposes of that question and what I think they were asking, I think that's just you know, she's just sucking on her tongue basically, and her mouth or
so
her
cute,
little
yes.
her little cheeks are moving at the same time. Yeah.
And I guess obviously in the wild as well, there's a lot more kelp to swim through.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, and a lot like it's in your way visually, so it's beneficial to have those whiskers. Yeah, and that's also why some of our otters have very long, like really nice whiskers, and then when you look at otters out in the ocean, they're kind of like shorter and stubbier. It's because they're rubbing them on stuff. They're, you know, rubbing them on the ocean floor. They're trying to find stuff, and they're rubbing them off a little bit. And our I almost said our walruses. Ugh. Our otters don't really do that as much. Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Next question is, how do penguins' bones differ from the bones of flying birds?
Great question. I mean, you can probably kind of already guess this. So we all mostly know that flighted birds have hollow bones. Penguins do not have as hollow a bones. So pretty easy. They obviously don't need that for flying. So yeah, they do still have like kind of the remnants of hollow bone. So it's like more hollow than say like a human, but they definitely have much denser bones. And so a bird this size is going to be much heavier than a flighted bird this size with these penguins. So yeah, they don't need those for flying, so they've developed other things, and denser bones is one of them.
I was going to think, I think hollow bones would make it a lot harder to sink.
Yeah, a lot harder to go down for sure. Yeah, absolutely. These guys have a lot of really interesting adaptations. They also have what's called a nictitating membrane on their eyes. And it's actually, well, JJ, you might know about it because reptiles have it as well. It's basically like a second set of eyelids.
Which is not okay, by the way, to see.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. So there's it blinks from front to back.
Yes.
So it's just like in these guys, it's a completely clear membrane that closes from front to back, and they can actually hold it closed, and that's how they will see underneath the water. Because just like us, their vision is a little bit wacky when they get underwater. Much harder to see, so they have like a built-in set of goggles that they can use, and that's a pretty unique trait to birds and to reptiles. Cats have something kind of like that, real Farkin, but it's not actually like a nictitating membrane in the sense that penguins do, but it is something kind of similar. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Plus that water cold. They don't want that cold water on their eyes. Yeah, maybe.
But it is as you said. My bearded dragon also has it, and it's like so quick. But it's the first time you see it, it's just like alien almost. This.
Yeah. It's if I had like a
transitioning.
weird like mutant superpower, I think that would be it. To be able to just like have goggles underwater, like see underwater perfectly well without having to wear silly things on my face. I think that would be my superpower.
You'd win a lot of arguments. What did you say?
Yeah.
Second eyelids.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm fine. Okay, moving on to the next question.
Next question is, have you ever worked with penguin chicks?
Oh my gosh.
No. Good question. And I think that we kind of covered this a little bit just with talking about how we are not a breeding facility at the Vancouver Aquarium. And when I worked with Magellanic penguins, that was at a different facility in Washington. And they are now breeding their penguins, but at the time we were not breeding the penguins. So no, I've never worked with penguin chicks. In some ways, it's probably like a blessing because I really don't need to be like, I make this really, I tend to make like a really weird high pitched squealing noise when something is super duper cute. And I imagine that would just be me all the time with the penguins if we had chicks.
Okay, but we've actually already covered this on terms of why is African penguin called a jackass penguin. We know because they sound like donkeys, and trust me, they do, which is very funny. At what age can they breed up to? Can a penguin 35 years old still breed? Although you did kind of answer this earlier on.
We talked about this a little bit. It's an interesting thing because like in human terms we like this is referred to as like menopause, right? And a lot of mammals is the same thing, like but it's such an interesting thing because we don't have a lot of data on it because out in the ocean this typically doesn't happen. Like animals are not getting old enough to not be able to breed, but under human care that does happen. So it's a really kind of understudied thing. I'm just kind of off on a little bit tangent here, but thinking about like dolphins and whales and stuff, they're now thinking that there is a menopause that these animals go through, but it's just not really been documented because they don't live that long out in the ocean to experience it, but they are experiencing it under human care. So the birds, like I said, there are some breeding pairs that are in their 30s, early 30s. So it's really hard to say, and it's going to be pretty individualized as well, just like with humans. It's possible for birds to become unable to breed at an earlier age, possible for it to be later, but right now it's seeming like early 30s is very old for breeding birds. And like I said, out in the ocean, they're not even 15 to 20 years as an average life expectancy. So it is thought that there is something like that going on with the birds, but there's not an enormous amount known about that right now. It's something that we get to learn because we have animals under human care. There's so many things that we can only learn because we have animals under human care. So hopefully there'll be more information about that sometime in the near future.
Okay, that was very different, but and interesting. As you said, it's like animals obviously live a lot longer in aquarium life, so that's not a easy thing to.
Yeah, so you get it. That's also why we've kind of talked about a little bit about it before, but like it's also why like there's a lot of cancer because cancer's an old disease. It's something that you typically only get if you live to be old enough to get it, and so we do see a lot of it in animals under human care, and it's just because they're older typically.
Yeah, and our ability to renew our cells start to die.
Yeah,
and fail. Next question.
The next question is, why is hope everyone's favorite?
Well, it's very easy to love an animal that loves you first. And hope, I mean, like it's it's not as easy to love animals that don't really care about you. So and typically African penguins are not a super social. Well, they're social with one other bird. So okay, there we go. Let's tie this back into penguins. So the reason that African penguins tend to be kind of territorial and even aggressive in some instances is because they live in South Africa, where it is generally a much warmer climate than, say, Antarctica, and they do not need each other to survive. So whenever you've seen those emperor penguins, those king penguins, they're all huddled together in massive groups because that's the only way that they can survive in those cold temperatures and stay warm. So those species of birds tend to be very open to tactile and to being near other birds and humans, and that's not the case with African penguins. So, you know, they don't need each other, so they tend to have their own individual little spaces and not really want other birds or humans in their zones. So that's the typical temperament of an African penguin, is like, just kind of leave me alone unless you have food. And Hope is just not that way. Hope is just always, I don't know what her deal is. I don't know why she is so attached to humans, but she just really seems to enjoy the company of people. And so that's why she's our favorite. She loves on us like, you know, she'll groom us just like she would another penguin and stuff like that. So it's just very, very easy, like I said, to love an animal that loved you first. So, you know, she's very sweet.
Okay. Well, now we know why Hope is so everywhere, which I love.
Yeah, and she's also very laid back. So you know, like I said, we bring her to the office. It doesn't matter what's going on. You know, people are walking in and out, and she's just like totally fine. A lot of the other birds tend to be pretty skittish in newer situations, and she's just extremely comfortable in them. So it makes it very easy for us to bring her around and to hang out with her, and so we get to spend a lot of time with her.
She probably thinks you're all just really giant penguins, or
I know she is one or the other. She either thinks we're penguins or
that she's human.
Or that she's human. I don't know which, but she's definitely a little.
She must be
confused.
like, why can't I hold a pencil and do some admin?
Yeah. Sometimes I sit her at my desk and she watches she'll chase the little mouse cursor around the screen.
Oh, that's
and
cute.
Anyway.
So we got quite.
She is everybody's favorite.
Quite a weird question here, but let's do it.
Perfect.
During the Falklands War, RAF pilots claimed that when they flew over columns of penguins, they would look up and watch the planes fly over. Then they would all topple over like dominoes. Is this likely to happen? Or is it something?
Oh, that's interesting. They are naturally drawn to watching things. So I think I've mentioned before, one of the enrichments that we do for our penguins is we actually have a laser pointer, and they'll chase it around just like a cat. And the same is true with insects. It's pretty funny if we have them out walking around, or even sometimes in the exhibit you might see them running after something. If a little fly is flying too low, they'll chase after it. So I can imagine that if something like that flew in just the right way and they were watching it, that they could topple over. They're not very I don't know if you guys have noticed this, they're not very agile on land. And so
yes.
Yeah, but there is actually, so obviously they've evolved to to be on two legs and to walk, which is not most birds are doing more of a hopping, or they're on branches, so they have a grip on things, so they're just a little bit less clumsy. But the reason that African penguins have evolved this way is actually because of the way that they walk. The kind of waddle that they do, that swaying back and forth, actually helps them to gain back some of the energy that would be lost walking in the way that they do, because they have those giant flippers on top of tiny little legs. They are not able to walk like us, which is like knee forward, foot forward, that kind of motion. So instead they do that waddle and that swing, and
yes.
that helps them to gain back some motion. You know, the reason they actually found out exactly how much energy a bird is saving is they trained penguins. This is many, many years ago, but there's a scientific article about training penguins to walk on a treadmill.
On a treadmill.
On a treadmill. And that is how they sort of put together this information and measured the energy that the animals were using during that process to find out that they're saving energy by doing that waddle. So the that iconic waddle that penguins do actually serves a really important purpose.
Okay. That's things you never think about, like something walking.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing for them to do to walk in that way. It's also why you'll often see on some of those in those colder climates, the animals that live, the king penguins, the emperor penguins, will slide on their bellies because that's even more energy efficient.
Okay. I understand that now. I'm like, that is just so. I'm never going to think of a penguin walking the same way again. It's like so much research went into it.
Yeah, I will, and you'll be able to envision penguins on a treadmill, which is always a nice.
I'm trying to envision that right now, and it's very interesting.
That actually leads to the next question, Reiha, which is actually ironic.
Yeah. Why are penguins super clumsy?
Yeah, and so that kind of ties into that, and that's pretty much why they're extremely agile in the water, and it's kind of like one of these things in evolution. Like, you cannot have it all. Like, an animal cannot be perfectly adapted for anything and everything. So they have evolved to be extremely agile, very graceful in the water, and then at the expense of not being well situated for life on land. That's kind of just the way of it. And yeah, like we talked about, the way that their legs are structured are much more conducive to swimming, those short stubby legs, and being aerodynamic in that way. And you can't have big long gangly legs that walk better on land if you're going to be super good in the water. So
especially when your knees are inside your body.
Knees are like tucked way up here. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like wearing hammer pants that are very tight. Or MC hammer pants.
Somebody in my chat says that you should just put a Fitbit on a penguin, and then we can measure like the amount of calories they're using for the walking.
Well, they're wearing collars around their wings, so that might actually work. That's actually funny.
Yeah, Jess is also saying that they don't have a lot of depth perception because of the way that they're. So for depth perception to be very, very good, you have to have two eyes in the front, and that's why most predators have two eyes in the front.
Yes.
So penguins actually, they have a blind spot right where their beak is, right in the front too. So it is possible for them to just like run headlong into something that they can't necessarily see. So yeah, there's a lot of factors against them when it comes to walking on land.
Like trying to look over the car bonnet. It's not gonna work. Yeah. This is a bit off the subject, but how do you prevent breeding at Van Aqua?
Yeah, so this is like a little bit of a heavy question, but like I said, we sometimes do have same-sex couples that are laying eggs, and in which case those are not fertilized eggs anyway. So we simply just take them away and compost them. We do not make omelets. And then we've actually never had a fertilized egg, so even our different sex couples that have laid eggs, the vet staff have never found one that was fertilized. Yeah. I don't know why. Again, maybe this plays into why we have these birds and they're not used for breeding, because maybe they can't. I don't know. But yeah, we simply take the egg away and we just dispose of it. So yeah, and like I said, the birds they haven't ever been fertilized. So but yeah, that's something that unfortunately we try to also prevent them from. So they don't have dens, and typically if they don't have dens, they're not going to lay eggs. And actually, our birds haven't laid eggs in quite a while, so maybe that's now working. So we don't provide them with like the tools to like for them to like gear up for breeding. So we try to just prevent it in the first place. So even though they do pair up, they just don't have. They're like, well, there's no den, so we're not going to lay an egg, and then they typically, yeah.
There we go. We actually have 2 more questions. Well, actually 3, because I got one on the Discord chat as well. But we basically have 3 more questions to get through.
Sure.
Ray, do you want to take the one that's on the form?
Oh yeah. So the next one on the list is, why do penguins bounce when they trip and fall?
Oh, well, there's like they have a lot of feathers, so I think I can kind of visualize what you're talking about, because like sometimes you see those like fall compilations of penguins like falling from like pretty decent heights and like bouncing pretty good. And I think that's mostly to do with the amount of feathers that they have. Like if you were to actually look at a naked penguin, there's a lot less there than there is when they have a full full thing of feathers. So I think that most of that is like kind of the armor from having they've got a big layer of down feathers, and then they've got those outer layer of waterproof feathers, and so they have the ability to bounce a little bit. It would be my guess. I don't know if there's a scientific article out there about why penguins bounce when they fall, but that would be my educated guess.
Oh my gosh. You know, as you said naked, all the penguins on screen like got a fright. It's like, where?
It was so funny. I was like, can they hear me?
And
because I saw the same thing happen.
And I just saw one decided to almost poop on my shoulder. It's like on this side.
Yeah, and these guys do molt. So once a year they get enormously fat. They almost double in their weight. And then they lose all their feathers. So it's like basically like a catastrophic molt is what we call it. So it's not just like, yeah, it is called that. So unlike, some of your flighted birds. So if a flighted bird did this, it would not be able to fly, right? So that's not like a good thing for them to do. So flighted birds tend to lose their feathers a little bit at a time. But penguins lose them all at the same time. So they are left, looking like completely naked little chickens. And they're fat too, because during this time they're not going to be able to hunt, and so they fatten up so that they can make it until they are able to get back in the water again, and then they grow back all nice new feathers and look super handsome after that. But yeah, it's we always like to make fun of them when it happens, because they lose they go from the top to the bottom and all their feathers fall out, and they're usually left with like a funny little like feather boa around their necks and like a mohawk, and they look absolutely ridiculous for a time until they grow back in their new feathers.
It's like catastrophic. Like that's the kind of thing you walk into like, hey, but whoa.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Please close the door. And yet they're in public with everyone else. Shame.
Yeah, that would be very catastrophic. You'd find yourself without any feathers out in public. It's like the stuff of nightmares. Like you're standing up in front of class and you realize you've had a catastrophic molt and you're naked.
It's basically like when Daffy Duck gets hold of a dynamite and he loses his beak and feathers. Oh no, shame.
Yeah, BC's saying that there's a penguin on Nat Geo that was scraggly looking for months. Has anybody noticed that Hope looks just like this? And has for a very long time. So Hope looks like she's molting. She's not. It's the same thing. So it is something that can happen, especially with birds under human care, probably because there's a lot less of those natural cues, such as where the fish are and stuff like that. They are always provided with the exact same conditions, essentially. Plus these guys are from South Africa, so their bodies are telling them one thing, but they were probably born somewhere else, like the New England Aquarium, and now they live here in Vancouver, so they're like, their cycles are totally messed up. So we've experienced that too. It is something that happens under human care. You will see sometimes birds not have perfect feathers. Hope for some reason does this very frequently, so I don't know what it is about her, but the other birds are looking really, really nice, and she looks like a total disaster. There's always one,
There's always, A question from our Discord side is, can some penguins fly short distances, sort of like chickens? Not much in the air, but like sort of just jump off the ground and...
Good question. So, no. But, like, I think, because like you've seen some of those, some birds can do this, like little like puffins and stuff like that, who, I mean, puffins can fly a better distance, but they're just not very good at flying. Penguins can just not fly. Zero flying at all. They don't have any flight feathers. As you look at these wings, there's just nothing that would generate lift. This thing will fall like a rock. So they do have feathers like on these wings, even though it might just look like it's just a black paddle on their arms. They actually do have feathers. So these are all tiny, tiny, tiny little feathers all along their wings, but they're just not long enough to create any sort of lift. They can't fly at all. No.
Okay, well, the last question I would actually like to answer for one specific reason is Joey still screaming? And the answer is absolutely yes. If you actually saw KP's stream with that had Katma watching TAZZTALK, I watched it. If you actually make it to the end, Joey is screeching, and now I completely understand. I don't know what he was screaming about. That was just so like,
Wow. I don't know what his problem was either. I don't know. I have to assume he was just mad that he wasn't getting it. I have no idea, but that was pretty bad. Yeah.
That was really that was not a meet.
Maybe he was screaming to distract everyone while Katma pickpocketed
yes.
us.
Yeah.
Yes. That was so funny.
Katma does know how to work zippers, so and there was a brief moment when I thought that they had stolen my radio, so but yeah, I panicked because I couldn't find my radio, but I had left it in the office, so it was fine.
Gosh. All of a sudden, 1 minute there's an archer just standing there, and you hear like, "Come in," and it's like coming from Katma's stomach, like, "Hello, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, or I'm in the office getting a radio call from like,
just wait 3 hours and you can have it back. It's like, oh no, but that was one of the questions: is Joey still screaming? And wow, I actually completely understand why you possibly don't want that at the end of the day. That.
Yeah, it's very different from meeping. There is a difference. He kind of starts out with like a cute little meep there, and it just escalates very, very quickly into full-blown, like full-throated screams.
Like, I just have to say, if you guys go back to watch the video, obviously that place is full of trainers, because I know when you hear the way he's screaming, you might feel concerned, but there are trainers there. It's just basically a 3-year-old being a 3-year-old.
Yeah, it's funny too, because everybody's like, he's hungry. I'm like, he had just eaten.
Yeah.
We fed them the entire bucket just before that. Because we were trying to avoid the screeching. I don't know why. I don't know if he just like was confused about what was going on, or why we were all like trying to watch this thing, or why he couldn't play with the cell phone. I have no idea. But
I wonder if it's because TAZZTALK has a certain tone to it, because it's that
Maybe.
low voice. When it was like, someone's trying to speak to me, but it was it was amazing.
I don't know. Yeah, we all screamed afterwards. Yeah, there was a lot of we were joking with each other, and like sometimes when he gets like that too, we'll just scream back at him, and he gets a little confused about that. So
they reply. Oh, one penguin just almost slept. One penguin decided almost. They're all standing in a line like they're waiting for their assembly, and there they go. Just push them in.
Yeah, I think there is some kind of like food situation about to happen or something. The penguins seem to be gathering.
Yes. They all seem to be in a line. But thank you very much. So guys, please, KP is going to be carrying on streaming on her side. I don't know if you're going to be playing Among Us or Phasmophobia, or if you're just going to be playing Jurassic Park. But or Taku. She's going to be playing something interesting. But I will say this, the next time we play Phasmophobia, please watch us, because it's the most horrific game you'll ever see, and the funniest.
We can play now. I don't really have too many other plans, so the only thing I want to play is Stardew, and my Stardew buddy's unavailable.
Yes.
So
yeah. Well, the next time we play Stardew, we played every Wednesday as well. Please join us next time. We got DeFi who plays with us. We've got quite a bit of people that play with us.
Yeah, would you guys stick around for JJ and Reiha and I screaming at Phasmophobia?
So yeah, I'm gonna post her link in the channel below. If you want something a little bit more light and you like Well, you like horror, but mostly you just like to see a guy scream like a girl, because that will happen.
Yeah, and me
join us.
completely abandon them and allow them to just die horrible deaths while I run away. That's usually what happens.
That's normal. That's normally Reiha's job as well, by the way, to leave us and not inform us. But just the other thing, guys, thank you for watching. You will know that KP does these streams every Monday, and she also plays games. So if you have any more questions, please also take advantage of the forms that we post. So we will be posting forms on both of our Discords, I think, for the next topic, where you can go put your questions in advance. This does help us. And yes, and watch the new Taz Talks that's out. And we are trying to support our artists and artists. Artists and artists.
Also, if you guys have like recommendations,
Yes.
For
like,
topics,
what you want to, topic recommendations, feel free to drop them in.
Next topic, sea lions, Beans says. Yeah,
I was going to say
Walruses.
walruses.
I know.
Next week.
Should we save walrus
Dude,
for when Jess joins you?
Yeah, maybe. I just feel like every stream is like a walrus AMA because I'm like always talking about walruses. But
Well,
we can talk about
it'll
whatever
be
you
nice if Jess is there as well. We can do a big walrus one, because I have a lot of questions about walruses as well.
Yeah, we have talked about having a big get together for Jess and I to do a little co-op.
Yes.
So yeah, maybe we'll plan on that.
But yes, thank you everyone for joining on our side. As mentioned, we posted the link below. Come watch us get scared. Come watch us scream at each other. It is a bit of a horror game if you're a bit sensitive, but you'll be watching us having a bit of fun. And thank you as always for watching. This is YTTAZZTALK with KP and Reiha. We'll catch you next time.